She was only 6 years old, smiling, clutching her teddy bear, and boarding the plane with her father, one of the richest black businessmen in America. To the world, they looked like any other family traveling home, but in seconds, that illusion shattered. A stewardess, without warning, raised her hand and struck the little girl across the face. Gasps filled the cabin. Phones came out. Passengers froze. What could drive someone to such cruelty? And what happened next would shake the entire airline industry to its core. The little girl's name was Amara. Bright-eyed, curious, and full of laughter, she was the kind of child who could make an entire room smile just by walking in. Her father, Marcus Cole, wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the most influential black billionaires in America, a self-made entrepreneur who built his fortune from the ground up. But despite his success, Marcus never let the world of luxury overshadow what mattered most: his daughter. On this flight, they weren't traveling for business or headlines. It was supposed to be simple: a weekend trip back home after a charity gala. Marcus had promised Amara ice cream when they landed, and she couldn't stop reminding him. The two laughed quietly as they settled into their seats, just another father and daughter sharing a moment of peace thousands of feet above the ground. To everyone else, Marcus looked like any other passenger, well-dressed, polite, calm. But as the plane prepared for takeoff, not everyone saw him that way. Some saw his skin color first, his wealth second, and his humanity last. The flight crew moved about with routine precision, handing out safety instructions and checking bags. Nothing seemed unusual, at least not yet. But just beneath the surface, something was brewing. A single spark, fueled by bias and arrogance, was about to turn a peaceful flight into a nightmare. Because in just a few moments, Amara's innocent laughter would be silenced in the cruelest way imaginable, and Marcus's world would be tested like never before. At first, it was small things. The stewardess, her name tag reading Claire, barely looked at Marcus and Amara when offering pre-flight service. Where other passengers were greeted with warm smiles and friendly chatter, Marcus received only curt nods, while Amara's request for juice was brushed aside with a sharp, "Wait until after takeoff." Marcus noticed, but he let it go. He had endured subtle slights his entire life. But Amara was just a child, too young to understand why someone would treat her differently. To her, this was just another adventure in the sky. When the seatbelt sign finally clicked off, Amara unbuckled, excited to peek out the window from the row across the aisle. "Daddy, look at the clouds," she whispered, tugging on his sleeve. Marcus smiled, nodding as she leaned forward, her teddy bear slipping from her lap. That's when Claire stormed down the aisle. Her footsteps were sharp, her face tense. "Sit down, right now," she barked, startling Amara. The little girl froze, her wide eyes darting between the stern stewardess and her father. Marcus raised a hand gently. "It's okay. She's just—" But before he could finish, Claire reached forward. In a motion so sudden it shocked the entire row, she slapped Amara across the face. The sound was sharp, echoing through the cabin. The teddy bear tumbled to the floor. Gasps erupted. A mother in the row behind shouted, "Did she just hit that child?" A businessman across the aisle fumbled for his phone, hitting record. The entire plane seemed to freeze in disbelief. Marcus's heart pounded. He stood slowly, towering over Claire. His voice was calm, controlled, but laced with steel. "You put your hands on my daughter." Claire's expression didn't soften. "Control your child, sir. Safety rules apply to everyone." Her words dripped with arrogance, as if striking a 6-year-old was merely part of enforcing order. The passengers weren't buying it. Murmurs swept through the cabin. "That's not safety. That's assault." "She hit a child." "Call the captain." Amara's small face crumpled, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. Marcus gently pulled her into his arms, whispering reassurance even as his own rage simmered just beneath the surface. He had spent years fighting to prove himself. In boardrooms, on magazine covers, in a world that too often dismissed him. But nothing compared to this moment, seeing his little girl struck for nothing more than existing. And yet, Marcus didn't lash out. Instead, he pulled out his phone. One call. That was all it would take. But this wasn't just about him or even about Amara. This was about holding an entire system accountable. A system that allowed someone like Claire to believe she could treat his daughter as less than human and get away with it. As the plane continued cutting through the night sky, the tension inside the cabin had reached its breaking point. Claire still stood rigid, trying to maintain control, but the tide was already turning. Dozens of eyes and cameras were on her. Now, passengers whispering, waiting, judging, and Marcus, steady and deliberate, pressed a number on his phone, a number that would make sure this story wouldn't end quietly. The call connected instantly. On the other end was Marcus's head of security, a man who had handled crises ranging from hostile takeovers to international scandals. Marcus's voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of thunder. "I want this airline's CEO on the phone. Now." Claire froze. The authority in his tone was impossible to ignore, yet she tried to stand her ground. "Sir, phones aren't allowed in flight," she snapped, her voice trembling now, not from confidence, but from the creeping realization that she had crossed a line she could never erase. Passengers stared, silent but electric with anticipation. Some whispered, others openly recorded, their cameras catching every second. One man muttered, "This is about to go viral." Minutes later, as Marcus cradled Amara in one arm, his phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't just security. It was the airline's regional director, patched through mid-flight. The voice on the other end was strained, apologetic, desperate. "We're aware of the incident, Mr. Cole. Please, allow us to handle this. The employee responsible will be removed immediately upon landing." But Marcus's reply cut deeper than any slap ever could. "Removed? This isn't about one stewardess. This is about accountability. My daughter was assaulted in front of dozens of witnesses, and you think a quiet termination will make this disappear?" His voice rose, not in rage, but in righteous fury. "No, the world will see how you treat black children in your care." Claire's face drained of color. She glanced around, realizing the cameras were still fixed on her. The murmurs grew louder. No allies, no excuses left. The tension reached its breaking point when Marcus ended the call with a single statement that shook the cabin. "By the time we land, your airline will answer to more than me." The cabin erupted in whispers and gasps. Claire backed away, her authority shattered. And for the first time, she understood. This wasn't just a father protecting his child. This was a reckoning. When the plane landed, the atmosphere was nothing like an ordinary arrival. Police officers and airline executives stood waiting at the gate, summoned before the wheels even touched the ground. Passengers filed out slowly, many refusing to leave until they gave their statements, each one determined that the truth be heard. The videos, already uploaded, were spreading across social media like wildfire. Within hours, Chapter toward Justice for Amara was trending worldwide. Claire was escorted off the plane, her once commanding presence reduced to silence and shame. But Marcus didn't look at her again. His focus remained on Amara, who clung to her teddy bear as if it could erase the memory of that moment. To her, it was a single slap, but to Marcus, and to the world watching, it symbolized something far deeper. The airline scrambled to contain the fallout. By morning, an emergency press conference was called. Executives announced that the entire cabin crew from that flight had been terminated. Publicly, they apologized. Privately, they begged Marcus to accept settlements and silence. But he refused. "This isn't just about my daughter," he told reporters. "It's about every child who has been dismissed, every parent who has been disrespected, and every life scarred by the arrogance of racism hiding in plain sight. My wealth didn't protect my daughter, and that's exactly why this must change." His words echoed far beyond the press microphones. For once, the headlines weren't about his fortune, but about his fight. For dignity, for justice, for something greater than himself. Amara would heal, but the memory would remain. A reminder that even innocence is not shielded from prejudice. And as millions replayed the video, one question lingered, burning in every viewer's mind. How many more moments like this will it take before the world finally decides? Enough. This wasn't just a story about one child, one flight, or one crew. It was a reflection of a truth too many families still face. Racism doesn't always wear a uniform, but when it does, its cruelty is undeniable. Amara's pain reminds us that silence is not an option. If this story moved you, don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it, and make sure voices like Amara's are never ignored again. And if you believe change is long overdue, join this community by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Because the fight against injustice isn't one story. It's all of ours.